Today's recap is about a highly dangerous bank robbery that is planned with incredible intelligence. And at the beginning of the movie, Dalton, the mastermind behind the robbery, is seen explaining the plan.
Recently, I planned and set in motion events to execute the perfect bank robbery.
After which Dalton and his team arrive at the bank disguised as painters, carrying painting tools so that no one suspects them. Dalton enters first, holding 2 lights, which he uses to disable the bank's CCTV cameras. Then the rest of his team comes in, locks the gates, and takes control. They are armed and order everyone to lie down on the floor.
Everybody get down on the fucking floor!
And they also throw a smoke grenade, filling the entire bank, and even the outside area, with smoke. Seeing the smoke, a police officer passing by tries to open the bank gate, but Dalton slightly opens the door, points a gun at the officer, and warns him that they have taken hostages.
I have got hostages.
Threatening that if any police try to enter, the hostages will be killed. So the officer immediately informs headquarters, and soon a police force arrives and seals the bank from all sides. Next, we are introduced to the bank owner, Arthur Case, and one of his employees informs him about the robbery. But he doesn't seem too worried at first, however, when he asks which branch has been robbed and hears number 3220 Exchange Place.
Which one?
20 Exchange Place?
He suddenly becomes tense, as if the branch holds some secret. Meanwhile, inside the bank, the robbers separate the civilians and employees and collect their mobile phones. But when one employee claims he doesn't have his phone, Dalton becomes suspicious, asks for the man's name, and calls it using another employee's phone, after which the phone is found inside a cabin in the bank, proving the man was lying and enraged. Dalton takes him into the cabin and beats him severely, making everyone else too scared to try anything clever. Dalton then orders the women to stand on one side and the men on the other, after which he forces everyone to remove their clothes, and once they do, the robbers give them identical outfits and masks, the same ones the robbers themselves are wearing, and which becomes a crucial part of Dalton's plan, as it removes any clear distinction between hostages and robbers. An elderly bank employee starts having trouble breathing due to a heart condition, and seeing his condition, Dalton lets him leave the bank, however, when the old man comes outside. The police mistake him for a robber and take him into custody.
Calm down! Let's go!
Now the bank robbery case is assigned to Detective Keith, and the department suspects him of being involved in a fraud case worth $140,000. So Keith sees this robbery as an opportunity to clear his name and earn a promotion, and along with his partner Bill, he sets out to handle the situation and bring the robbery to an end. While at the scene, Captain John is initially in charge, but as soon as Keith arrives, he takes full command and makes it clear that no action should be taken without his approval. Around the same time, Dalton sends a man outside from the bank, who is actually a civilian, an Indian man, with a box hanging around his neck. And the police immediately arrest him and seize the box, and when Keith opens it, he finds Dalton's demands written inside, that a jet and 2 buses must be brought outside the bank by 9 p.m., or all the hostages will be killed. Keith and his team are not ready to agree to these demands, and just then, the bank owner, Mr. Arthur Case, arrives in a panic and tells Keith that he can arrange the jet and buses if needed.
Have they made any demands?
They want a jet.
Would you like me to arrange one for you?
Which raises Keith's suspicion, making him wonder why Arthur is so eager to help. However, Keith refuses his offer and asks him to leave. Soon after, the bank doors open again, and the robbers hand over a note to the police, saying that 50 people inside are hungry and need food, so Keith comes up with a clever plan and decides to send pizzas inside with hidden microphones so they can secretly listen to the robbers' conversations. The pizzas are delivered, and Keith starts listening to the recordings, but the conversation is in a language no one can understand.
Well, this is New York City. Somebody on the street must know what it is.
Excuse me, does anybody know what language they're speaking? Anybody?
So to solve this, Keith calls in experts who might recognize it, and eventually they find a young woman who understands the language. She tells Keith that the recording is actually of a former president of Albania who is already dead, and in the tape, he is talking about why the people of Albania are great, which leaves Keith shocked. Realizing that the recording was a deliberate attempt to waste time and confuse the investigation, Keith understands that Dalton is not an ordinary criminal. Meanwhile, inside the bank, Dalton and his team carefully inspect the entire building, checking every room, including the lockers, and eventually, they enter a storage room filled with supplies like printing paper, printers, and other equipment. There, they move a rack that was placed in front of the wall, and one of Dalton's men begins digging a hole in the ground. But after digging it, they simply leave it as it is, and the mystery behind this hole will be revealed later. The scene then shifts to Arthur Case, who is seen extremely worried, and he meets Madeleine White, a professional fixer who handles problems for the rich and powerful people of New York and has strong connections with influential individuals. Arthur tells her that he has a locker inside the bank and that he needs whatever is inside it at any cost. So he asks Madeleine to go inside the bank, negotiate with the robbers, and make sure that the contents of his locker are safely brought back to him. After this, Madeleine meets the mayor of New York and convinces him to grant her permission to enter the bank, and with special authorization, she arrives at the scene while Keith isn't happy about a civilian entering an active hostage situation, but he's overruled and Madeleine walks in alone. Inside, she meets Dalton, completely calm and in control, and she tries to negotiate while subtly bringing up the locker. But Dalton shocks her by revealing that he already knows what's inside, and even the dark secret behind it.
Now, I don't need to tell you that this period in history was rife with opportunity for people of low morals. People like this man. He used his position with the Nazis to enrich himself, while all around him people were being stripped of everything they owned. Then he used his blood money to start a bank.
At that moment, Madeleine realizes Dalton isn't a typical robber who can be bribed or negotiated with. He has his own plan, and after a brief conversation, Dalton politely ends it and sends her out. Meanwhile, Dalton and his team are quietly executing their real mission as they locate Arthur Case's private locker and open it, finding a small tin box containing a diamond ring and old documents. Those documents expose the truth. During World War II, Arthur Case collaborated with the Nazis, helping hide wealth stolen from Jewish victims, and the diamonds he received became the foundation of his empire. This was never about money. It was about exposing the truth. Inside the bank, Dalton carries out a carefully planned strategy, dividing the hostages into groups and moving them between different areas like the lobby and offices, while constantly rotating them to create confusion and allowing his team to mix in with the hostages so no one can tell who the robbers are. Because the hostages are kept in separate rooms, none of them can remember anyone's face, and Dalton uses this to quietly mix his own crew members in among them. Dalton then stages a scene where one of his own men, who is already sitting among the hostages, suddenly removes his mask in front of everyone,
Fuck this shit. Look, they want to shoot me for taking off my mask.
making it look like he is actually one of the hostages. And seeing this, Dalton immediately confronts him and beats him, creating the impression that he is punishing a hostage who broke the rules. While in another moment, Dalton brings in a girl and appears to attack her aggressively, but in reality, she is also his accomplice.
Come on, Goose. Let's go. You are...
And the way he drags her in and hits her makes it seem to the hostages as if he has just beaten a girl from another room and brought her there to sit among them. And through all of this, Dalton successfully places his own team members inside the hostage groups without anyone suspecting them. After some time, Dalton releases a group of hostages from the bank. Keith and his partner Bill immediately sit them down for individual interrogations. Keith shows each person photographs of known criminals and asks them to identify the robbers, but every single released hostage gives the same answer. They don't recognize anyone, they all say the same thing. Everyone inside was dressed identically, masked, and impossible to tell apart. What makes this even more remarkable is that some of the people being interrogated are, in fact, Dalton's own crew members. Coolly sitting across from the police and playing the role of confused, traumatized civilians to perfection, Keith walks away from the interrogations with nothing. No identification, no leads, and growing frustration. Keith and Dalton engage in a tense phone conversation. Dalton remains calm, composed, and almost amused. He never sounds like a man under pressure, Keith, trying to gain some ground, negotiates for the right to personally enter the bank and check on the remaining hostages. Dalton calmly agrees. Keith steps inside the bank. His real purpose is not simply a welfare check. He wants to test Dalton's resolve. In a bold and reckless move, Keith physically attacks Dalton inside the bank.
Mine is still a standing offer, all right?
That sounds like a graveyard.
But before he can do anything further, one of Dalton's armed men immediately steps forward and points his gun directly at Keith. Faced with a weapon aimed at him at close range, Keith has no choice but to stop. He backs down and walks out of the bank without achieving anything. The moment Keith steps outside, the situation takes a dramatic turn. The police monitoring the CCTV cameras suddenly see something alarming on the footage. A man on the terrace of the bank is visibly shot and falls. It appears as though Dalton has executed a hostage in retaliation for Keith's aggressive move inside the bank. In reality, this is entirely staged. Dalton had planned this moment well in advance. The shooting is completely fake, performed using a dummy, designed specifically to look real on camera from the outside, but the effect is devastating for the police. From their perspective, a hostage has just been killed. The apparent hostage execution has the exact effect Dalton calculated. Captain John, who has been watching and growing increasingly impatient throughout the siege, immediately loses all confidence in Keith's negotiation approach and pulls the plug on dialogue completely, ordering the NYPD Emergency Service Unit to prepare a full tactical assault on the bank building. The breach and clear operation is set in motion. Just as the assault team is gearing up and finalizing their entry plan, Keith makes a chilling discovery. He picks up the metal box that Dalton had sent out at the very beginning, the one containing Dalton's written list of demands for the jet and buses, and examines it carefully this time, finding a concealed listening device hidden inside the box. Dalton has been listening to every single conversation the police have had since the very beginning of the standoff. Every strategy meeting, every plan, every detail of the assault now being prepared. He already knows the ESU is coming. He knows exactly how many officers are involved, what doors they plan to breach, and what tactics they will use. Keith realizes with dread that they have been playing directly into Dalton's hands from the very start. Acting on the intelligence gathered from the bugged box, Dalton moves with precision. He assembles all the remaining hostages, his crew fully mixed among the real civilians, and the bank doors are blown open. The entire crowd surges out into the street simultaneously. It is complete chaos. Police officers scramble to control the crowd, desperately trying to separate robbers from hostages, but it is impossible. Every single person is wearing the same coveralls, the same mask, the same shoes. Dalton's crew members peel away into the crowd, strip off their outer clothing, and disappear into the streets of Manhattan like ghosts. When officers finally sweep the bank, they find no money missing from the vault, no stolen cash, and, most shockingly,
guys, no booby traps, no tunnels, no damage.
There's nothing missing. Great.
the guns used throughout the robbery were fake props all along.
Boys, as if it wasn't weird enough already.
Cap, come to the ladies' room.
Check it out. We can stop looking for that body.
The execution on the terrace was staged. There is no hard evidence of any crime, but here is the masterstroke. The detail that makes Inside Man a truly perfect heist. Dalton never actually left the bank at all. Remember the hole that his men dug in the storeroom floor and the rack they moved away from the wall? That was not for a tunnel or escape route. The wall was carefully modified to create a hidden room. A sealed compartment just large enough for one man to survive inside for several days. Dalton retreats behind this false wall as his crew escapes, and he simply waits. He reads, eats the food his crew had stashed in advance, and stays completely still while the police swarm every inch of the bank around him. The very opening scene of the film, where Dalton appeared to be speaking from a small, dimly lit cell, is now revealed for exactly what it was: his hiding place inside the bank's own wall. Days later, with the police investigation winding down and the scene officially cleared, Keith cannot move on. Something still does not add up. No money was stolen, no one can be charged, and yet the whole operation was clearly planned with extraordinary intelligence. He digs deeper and discovers that Arthur Case's private safety deposit box is not even officially listed in the bank's records. It is a secret locker.
Safety deposit box number 392, according to these records, is the pinstripe mayonnaise lying motherfucker. Let's go.
Keith obtains a search warrant to open it. Madeleine White arrives immediately to warn him off, threatening his career and his future, but Keith is prepared. He had secretly recorded their earlier conversation, giving him leverage over her.
You how this works. You press here to record, and you press...
She delivers a chilling line that captures the film's deeper theme. When there's blood on the streets, buy property. I think Mr. Case really took that sentiment to heart. A full week after the robbery, Dalton calmly emerges from behind the false wall. He collects what he truly came for: the contents of Arthur Case's hidden locker, the Nazi-era documents proving Case's wartime betrayal of his Jewish friend, and several small pouches of diamonds stolen from Holocaust victims. He walks out of the bank dressed in civilian clothes, blending seamlessly with the people on the street. At that exact moment, Keith and Bill are entering the bank to open Case's box. The two men pass each other in the narrow doorway. Dalton bumps lightly into Keith and they exchange a brief glance. Keith does not recognize him. Outside, one of Dalton's crew members, a Jewish professor who had posed as a hostage throughout the entire siege, asks Dalton about the Cartier diamond ring found in Case's locker.
Where is it?
I left it in there.
Dalton reveals he left it behind deliberately as a calculated clue for Keith. His reasoning is quietly powerful. He wants Keith to have the evidence needed to pursue justice against Case, a man whose entire empire was built on stolen wealth and the blood of Holocaust victims. Even if Dalton himself cannot do so openly, Keith opens the box and finds the ring. Along with the damning documents, he goes directly to Arthur Case and lays everything on the table. The Nazi collaboration, the stolen diamonds, the Jewish friend who was sent to a concentration camp. Because of Case's betrayal, Case, old and cornered, offers no meaningful defense. Keith then walks into a meeting between Madeleine White and the mayor. He hands Madeleine a pen containing a recording and gives her the contact details for the Office of War Crimes issues at the U.S. State Department, making it clear that Case's crimes will be reported. He also implies, without confirming, that copies of their earlier recorded conversation exist, leaving Madeleine with enough uncertainty that she cannot risk moving against him. Keith goes home. As he reaches into his coat pocket, his fingers close around something small and hard, a single, loose, multi-carat diamond, slipped into his pocket by Dalton. In that brief moment they bumped into each other at the bank entrance, Keith stares at it. He knows now, without any doubt, exactly who that man was, and he also knows, whether he likes it or not, that he too has quietly become a beneficiary of Arthur Case's stolen fortune. The film ends exactly where it began, with Dalton Russell's voice calm and certain, telling us he committed the perfect bank robbery. He was absolutely right. He never stole a single cent from the bank. He stole the truth, and left justice and one diamond behind. If Dalton outsmarted you too, smash that like button and subscribe. New thriller recaps every week. Don't miss them. Share this with a friend who loves heist movies, and tell me in the comments, was Dalton a criminal or a hero?